with the principle of Sankofa said you're supposed to be moving forward while studying the past.
Well, we're pretty much on a conveyor belt, or we're either doing one or the other. If we're looking forward, we're not looking back. If we're looking, if we're moving forward, we're not looking back. And if we're looking back, we are not moving forward. So it's like, it's people, we need to get into a middle ground there where we, the saying called for bird. You do both, And when you talk about people, you were speaking about, people that they get to represent them, like white supremacy gets to represent them. Skippy Gates comes to mind, and Du Bois when they used him against the Honorable Marcus Garvey. So they've always had their hand in pushing someone to confront us.
That's right.
Doctor, what do you say to someone who, say has that regular 9-to-5 job, and they're doing okay in terms of a salary or whatever, but they're doing that 9-to-5 job every day. They come home from work. They want to chill out a little bit. They know, some of the things that's going on out here in the world, but they're pretty much predisposed to the position of, what can I do? This is my life. This is all it's ever going to be. How would you go, what would you say to help, try to, motivate someone like that?
Well, there is no better motivator than for someone to see an example of what they should be like. See, the problem with us presently is that we're talking about what we can do, but no one's actually doing it. And so most black people who are not industrious enough to want to step out on faith and create an independent existence of their own, they are more likely to sit and wait until they see the leaders, or not even leaders, but servicemen and women stand up and create that example, and then they'll follow it. Unfortunately, we're like a bandwagon people politically. We tend not to move at all until we see some force that is showing that it can be successful. And that's because we lack faith in ourselves. So instead of saying, look, I'm going to be the first one to make this happen. I'm going to be the one to build that hospital. I'm going to be the one to build that school. I'm going to be the one to forge that Pan-African network. To step out on faith with confidence in self, a lot of that has been beaten out of us because of our low racial self-esteem. So we're looking for someone to step out there first to show us that it can work, and then everybody else joins in. But see, the problem with that is it feeds inertia because everyone sits still and they're constantly looking for who's going to jump into the water first, and because everyone's trying to follow and not enough are trying to lead, nobody goes anywhere.
Okay.
Now, from a Pan-African view, from your travels, is this, I guess you would say, this form of self-hate a local phenomenon, or is it
international? It is everywhere. It's in America with black men marrying white women. It's in Jamaica with the brothers and sisters bleaching their hair. It's in Africa where the blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jesus Christ is still dominant. It is in Brazil with the statue of the white Christ on one of the highest mountains in the country. It is everywhere. Remember, white supremacy is a global system. It is not local. So in France, there's white supremacy. In Spain, there's white supremacy. In Africa, there's white supremacy. Wherever white people are or wherever they control the institutions, white supremacy is there because white supremacy is the foundational aspect of European culture. Any European culture that doesn't have white supremacy in it isn't a European culture. You must have white supremacy in the culture in order for it to be European because Europeans are a minority. So whether you're Spanish, Greek, Roman, Italian, it does not matter. You are in a minority. And as a result of that, you have a survivalist consciousness that says we must dominate everybody else in order for us to exist. And that's exactly what they do. Although the strategies and the physical manifestation of the different forms of racism may vary, it's all the same racism. It's just different techniques. And unfortunately, black folk are so interested and trying to get white people to love them that we often mistake strategic tomfoolery by Europeans for sincere efforts at brotherhood and sisterhood. Black people are always being suckered into this because white folk will shake our hands or they'll smile on our face, or they'll invite us to a particular meeting or to become part of a club, and we think, okay, well, here's a good white man and here's a good white woman. We fail to realize that's less of a military science. Every time you have an encounter with a European, that is a strategic battle every single time. They are aware of that. Whenever they interface with a black person, it is a competition. It is a test of will. And if they can subdue you through trickery, then they will subdue you through trickery. And unfortunately, most of us are subdued through trickery. Through straight up, good old-fashioned, making these Negroes think we like them trickery. Okay? And then for the ones who they can't fool through the trickery, that's when they use more obvious and more repressive strategies to keep us in our place. But most black folk can be won simply by a smile from a white person.
Yeah, and it's like the saying goes, a weak man only goes where he smiled at. That's an African saying. How does the global system of racism, white supremacy, go about creating this perpetuating pattern of self-hatred?
Well, see, here's the thing. A man is first and foremost loyal to his stomach. And because a man is first and foremost loyal to his stomach, whoever can put food in that stomach will also be given the power to control his thinking, because he's going to follow whoever has the food. He's going to follow whoever has the clothing, and he's going to follow whoever has the shelter. If you notice, one of the biggest discussions that's always being had by white men is the economic order, the economic system, Wall Street, the world's financial condition. Why is that so important? Because they recognize that in order to control people, you have to control their food supply. It's important that you do. And so the European wants to control food, and he wants to control money, because without food and money, it's going to be difficult to exist. And so he knows that if he controls your food and if he controls your money, then ultimately he controls the way you think, because you'll do anything you need to do in order to feed your family and have money to pay bills and buy the things that you need. So this is why so much attention is being put on, has always been put by white folk on the economic order, because they know that if they control the money, if they control the world's finances, then they automatically control the people, because there can be no political movement, no powerful political movement without an independent economic base. What made Mr. Garvey so successful was an independent economic base. Even if you look at the Nation of Islam, the Moors, the Black Panthers, the Black Power movement, they had an independent economic base. Once you have an independent economic base, which means what? You don't have to worry about where your food is coming from, and you don't have to worry about where your money is coming from. Now you can step out there and be bold and do the things that you need to do. But when the enemy controls your food and your money, it is difficult for you to fight the way you need to fight, because you know at the end of the day, he can starve you to death, okay? And because of that, a lot of black people often are somewhat compromised and docile in their approach to dealing with white supremacy, because 99% of us work for white people. And so how do you fight the same hand that's feeding your family? It's difficult to do it. And that's why a lot of black people don't join political movements. They don't get involved in things, because they know that if I get seen, that could be the difference between my family being home or being hungry. And so because of that, most black folks are simply economic casualties in our political struggle. They are an economic casualty of war. Black folk who have already waved the flag of surrender, because they're too afraid to lose their job.
Doctor, coming in on the tail end of that, I'm gonna say two words here, and if you can, give me your thoughts. Gaddafi and Libya, and the recent happenings there.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right. The situation with Gaddafi and Libya isn't limited to just Gaddafi and Libya, but it was an African situation. Gaddafi isn't even the one who came up with the idea. He simply had the resources in order to get it done. It was sub-Saharan African leaders who came up with the idea of building a central bank. The reason Gaddafi is dead is because he was going to finance the idea of building a Central African bank. And as you know, white folk needs to control the money. So if you say you're going to build a Central African bank, with Africa being the only continent that has an unlimited supply of mineral wealth that can be used to back its dollar and back its currency, had they been successful in building a Central African bank, Wall Street would have crumbled overnight. The Chinese economy would have crumbled overnight.
Yes.
The euro would have crumbled overnight. Why? Because these nations don't have resources. Their whole economic order is based on trust and fraudulence. Okay? Fake money that has no value and trust in each other not to let that be known to the world. So because your economic system is based on fraudulence, okay, and trust, if you have an economic order that's based on truth and material resource, then you automatically tower overnight. And so because of that, they knew that they had to assassinate him so he couldn't put forth the economic energy necessary to build that Central African Bank. But had they built that Central African Bank, that would have been the most revolutionary act of probably the last 2,000 years. Since the beginning of slavery, that would have been the most revolutionary act because it would have eliminated economic slavery. It would have eliminated. The other thing they were about to do is they were about to float their own telecommunications network so that all of Africa could buy their own cell phones and sell their own cell phones. Because, you know, cell phones in Africa is one of the world's fastest growth markets. Selling cell phones in Africa, because for those of you who've been to Africa, and I have, you can't really get a plan in Africa. You can't get a plan where you pay a monthly bill. They don't trust them. So every time you get minutes, you're prepaying your minutes. Prepay. It's extremely expensive. And because of that, there's a lot of exploitation in the name of the cell phone in Africa, which we invented, by the way, the cell phone. And so by floating their own telecommunications network, guess what? They can produce their own cell phones. And not only that, they will be able to produce their own telecommunications. So there would be no need for ABC and NBC and Fox and CNN in Africa because they would be able to produce their own propaganda and their own information network. So becoming financially independent and then becoming independent in terms of your communication networks, that would have automatically brought Africa into the 21st century because Africa has been in the 19th century, okay, for the past 200 years. And we need to all, you know, put some ropes on the continent and pull her into the 21st century. The white man likes to keep her in the 18th and 19th century because they like to use Africa as a dollar store where they come in and raid the diamonds and the gas and the coltan and the oil, okay, for pennies, and then clean it up, refine it, and then sell it to the world for billions of dollars of profit. So what they were about to do is totally revolutionary, and it still needs to be done. It still needs to be done. To build that African bank, you will automatically bankrupt Europe and China because Europe and China's wealth is based on what? The resources of Africa. They're only wealthy because of Africa. Why do you have a technologically sophisticated age right now? iPods and cell phones and airplanes and all this other stuff. You only have it because of minerals from Africa. Africa still is the center of the world. The problem is we're being treated as the bottom as opposed to the top. And I'm constantly trying to remind black folk that if we want to improve our condition, we're going to have to do what? Become Pan-African. We have to help Africa move into the 21st century because there's no such thing as any population of people. There's no population of people outside of their mother continent who gets more respect than the people on the continent. Nowhere. So if you think that because you're an African American, you're going to somehow climb to a level that you've never been without Africa also being equated on that very same level you're aspiring to, then you're living in a fantasy land. And one of the biggest shortcomings of most of our organizations and movements since Marcus Garvey's death has been the fact that most of them really were not Pan-African. Some of them didn't deal with Africa flat out, okay? And we really haven't had a serious Pan-African movement in this country in a long time, and we still don't have one. I mean, you used to have Marcus Garvey's UNIA, which I used to be a member of, but they're largely just talking and posturing. There's not too much work being done, a lot of infighting, but not a lot of work. So where is that Pan-African beacon? Where's that Pan-African movement that's going to lead the way to where we need to be? It's not out there. And so we're going to have to build it because all these other black nationalists and socialists and religious nationalist groups, they're really a waste of time because they're not dealing with Africa, they're not in Africa, and they have no African redemption program. And if you don't redeem Africa, you'll never redeem yourself.
Well, in listening to you, and I was wondering if you were still a member of the UNIA, because I remember when I used to be in there every once in a while, and I remember you were a part, and I wasn't sure if you were still there. The thing is that like you said, Africa is pretty much the plate